Hello. Thank you for joining me today. Today's class has a focus on the hip flexors, both strengthening and stretching those hip flexors. And throughout class today, feel free to take any modifications. If there's a joint that you're working to protect or a variation on a pose that you just really enjoy, feel free to take those modifications and variations. We'll begin in a seated position. For me, cross-legged works well, but you're welcome to be in half lotus or full lotus or legs out in front, whatever works best for your hips and knees. Our sits bones grounding down, crown of the head reaching high. We'll begin with a couple of moments to focus on our breathing. Not trying to change the breath at first, just noticing. Option to close the eyes or soften your gaze. Maybe you feel that cool air in the nose or at the back of your throat. And option to seal the lips closed, focusing the breathing through your nose. And maybe you make a constriction at the back of the throat for that ujjayi breath, that ocean sound. Now deepening the breathing, we'll inhale for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Repeating that one more time. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold. And exhale. Feel free to return to your normal rate of breathing. And anytime during today's class, if your mind starts to wander, just bring your attention back to our breathing. We'll add some movement in with the breath here, bringing one ear down toward the shoulder, inhaling and exhaling. Maybe walking the opposite fingers out along the floor. And option to add a third layer, bringing the matching palm to the top of the head. Not pressing or forcing it here, just letting gravity do its work. Returning to center and switching sides, bringing the ear down to the opposite shoulder. Inhaling and exhaling. Maybe walking those opposite fingers out along the floor. You might feel this stretch from your elbow to your ear. And if you're adding that third layer, palm to the top of the head. Last breath here. Returning to center, shoulder rolls. We'll move the shoulders forward, up, back and down. Inhaling as the shoulders lift. Exhaling as they descend. 2 more. Last one here. Switching direction. Shoulders move back, up, forward and down. Inhaling on the way up. Exhaling down. 2 more. Last one. Bringing both arms high overhead. We'll rock forward onto hands and knees. Tabletop position. I'll turn sideways so you can see what I'm doing. Shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. All 10 fingers anchored down onto the mat. All 4 corners of the palm anchored down. Preparing for cat-cow. Maybe the scapula spread wide here. And then the belly drops low as the crown and tailbone lift. On an exhale, curving the spine, gaze moves toward the knees or the navel. Inhale, gaze moves toward the front of the room. And on an exhale, curving the spine. Inhale, collarbones spread wide here. Exhale, scapula spread wide. Feel free to take a few more, matching your own rate of breathing, adding in any other movement that might work well for you here. Rocking the hips back and bring this more into the thorax. Hips side to side will give you a side body stretch. Last breath here. Returning to center. Moving into a modified tiger pose. This is like an exaggerated cat-cow, but you're welcome to take any other tiger variation. Lifting that left heel high, aiming for the knee to be level with the hip here. Flexing that foot. And on an exhale, bringing that thigh in toward the chest, chin drops down toward the knee. Inhale, lifting the heel high. And on an exhale, curving in. Inhale, gaze lifts, heel lifts. And on an exhale, hugging that thigh close to the chest here, making the hip flexor work. 2 more. Last one. Returning that knee down to the earth, switching sides. Lifting the opposite heel high, knee is bent at 90 degrees. Aiming for that knee to be as high as the hips here. And on an exhale, hugging that thigh in toward the chest, chin drops down. Inhale, lift the gaze, lift the heel. Exhale, curve. Inhale, lift. 2 more. Lift. Last one. Lifting high. And now straightening that lifted leg, pointing those toes behind you. We'll be moving into a modified sunbird bow, or any sunbird bow variation. Elbows pointing toward the back of the mat. Chaturanga style, arms lowering down, moving the chin down toward the chest, using those triceps as we lift the toes high. Maybe the chin comes all the way down to the earth. And maybe you move into a chin stand if that's in your practice. That back foot can be grounded or lifted here. Continuing to engage the triceps. And we'll press up, returning that knee down to the mat. Switching sides, extending that opposite leg long. Toes reaching behind you. Elbows pointing straight toward the back of the mat. And we'll lower the chin down as the toes lift high. Modified sunbird bow. Pressing up, bringing that knee back down to the mat. And then walking the hands slightly forward or knees slightly back, coming into kneeling plank. Anytime during class when we take plank, you're welcome to be on your knees or on your toes. In either variation, looking for a straight line from the knees through the crown of the head and shoulders directly over the wrists. Elbows pointing toward the back of the mat, we'll lower down slowly, 1 inch at a time, all the way down to the mat. Eventually our belly rests down, hands remain underneath the shoulders, feet Feet draw close to one another. Our tailbone tucks, hips press down as shoulders lift for baby cobra. And lower. Repeating that, tailbone tucks, hips press down, shoulders lift. Maybe lifting the hands this time. Noticing there's little to no weight in the hands for baby cobra. And lower. Repeating that one more time. Hips press down, shoulders lift. Baby cobra is a strengthener for our back muscles. And lower. This time, pressure through the palms lifts the shoulders a little higher for cobra. Stretching the front body here. Keeping a bend in the elbows, not locking them out. Sternum reaching toward the front of the room. Collarbone spread wide. And lower. One more. Your choice, baby cobra or cobra. Shoulders lift. And lower. This time, pressure through the palms shifts the hips all the way back for child's pose. Your choice, narrow knee or wide knee child's pose here. Reconnecting with our breathing. Appreciating the stretch of child's pose as our hips sink down toward the heels, giving us a stretch through the lower back. Fingers reaching forward, elbows lifted, provides a stretch through the shoulders. And now walking the hands over to the left side of the mat, side body stretch. If you're looking for a little more sensation, you can inch the fingers slightly further left or stack the right hand on top of the left. And switching sides, gently walking those hands over toward the right side of the mat. This time it might be the left hand stacking on top of the right. Returning to center. Easing our way through tabletop, back into kneeling plank. Your choice, on your knees or on your toes. I'll offer a kneeling vinyasa flow here, but if chaturanga vinyasa is in your practice, you're welcome to take that. Elbows pointing toward the back of the mat, lowering down all the way to the mat for kneeling vinyasa. Shoulders lift, baby cobra. Lowering the shoulders, our hips guide us back for an active child's pose. Just for a moment, we'll repeat that one more time. Shifting forward into our plank. Your choice, kneeling vinyasa or chaturanga vinyasa. Elbows pointing back, lowering down. Shoulders lift. And then our hips guide us back. This class has a few chaturanga opportunities, and you're always welcome to use that kneeling vinyasa flow or meet in downward facing dog or child's pose at those times. Tucking the toes here, we'll lift the hips high for our first downward dog of class. Bending, alternating knees, settling into this upside down position. Fingers spread wide here. Palms press into the mat, pressing the mat toward the front of the room, sending the hips toward the back of the room. And maybe shaking the head yes or no, loosen up the neck. And then take a generous bend through both knees, melting the heart closer to the thighs. Lifting the heels, lifting the tailbone a little bit higher, focusing on a straight spine here. The focus of downward dog is really in the upper body, on that straight spine. So you're welcome to keep the knees bent or begin straightening them, easing the heels closer to the earth. It's okay if they don't touch. Our gaze moves toward the top of the mat, bending the knees. Take as many steps as you need for the feet to reach the hands. Forward fold. We'll take a twist here. The left hand stays low and the left knee bends as we reach the right arm high for a twist. That left hand that's low might be on the earth or your ankle or knee. Those right fingertips reaching high for a twist. And straightening that right leg might provide a nice IT band stretch here. Lowering that right hand down, bending the right knee, and switching sides. In addition to being a nice stretch for the outer hip, this is also a good pose for preparing for a bird of paradise in your future. Lowering that left hand down, and taking a bend through both knees. We'll take our slowest roll up of class, one vertebra at a time. Easing our way up to standing. Hips press forward as we come up. Shoulders roll back. Tadasana, mountain pose. Toes are spread. Knees are soft. Pelvis tucks. Chest is proud. Crown of the head reaching high. Palms shine toward the front of the room. Extended mountain pose, reaching both arms high. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Crown of the head reaching toward the front of the room. Hands might be on thighs, knees, or shins. Shoulder blades are squeezing together, nice flat back here. And forward fold. Reverse swan dive all the way up. Extended mountain pose. We'll repeat that one more time. Option to add breath to movement here. On an exhale, swan dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive all the way up. Adding on here, swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. This time our hips sink back as our arms come high for chair pose. Weight is in the heels. Slight tuck of the tailbone. Glancing down, maybe you see the toes beyond your knees, sending the hips toward the back of the room in order to see those toes, maybe lifting or wiggling them. And we'll flow in and out of chair to mountain 2 times, focusing on the muscles of the hips and glutes, tucking the tailbone as we press the hips forward, hands come to heart center. And then hips sink low, arms reach high for chair. Just for a moment this time, so maybe sinking a little lower. And hips press forward to mountain. One more brief chair, hips sink low, arms reach high. And hips press forward, hands to heart center. This time settling into our chair, so choose your depth accordingly. And then hands come to heart center. We'll twist to the left. Twisting the upper body here, taking any twist variation. Maybe that right elbow touches down on the left knee. Only if you can extend that spine while we're here. Extending the spine long, thumbs might press in toward the sternum or arms can fly wide here. Check in on the knees, pulling that right hip back in space in order to keep that right knee level with the left. Returning to center, hips press forward, arms come wide and high. And sinking back down into one more chair. Hands come to heart center, twisting to the right. Any variation here. That elbow might be floating or touching down. Thumbs might press in or arms can fly wide. Check in on the knees. Pull that left hip back in space. Level the knees out. Returning to center. Hips press forward. Arms come wide and high. Extended mountain pose. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Forward fold, bending the knees, planting the hands, stepping back to plank. Your choice, on your knees or on your toes here. Chaturanga Vinyasa, kneeling Vinyasa, or downward facing dog. Elbows pointing toward the back of the mat. Half push-up is Chaturanga. Shoulders lift, upward dog. Shoulders over the wrists here, hips are floating. And then our hips guide us back, downward facing dog. The left foot anchors down, the right heel lifts high, three-legged dog. That right foot is flexed, toes pointing straight down to keep the hips neutral. And your modification here is bird dog with the knee on the earth. On an exhale, the knee moves in toward the nose. Shoulders over the wrists here, hugging that thigh in close. Extend long. Exhaling in, make that hip flexor work. Inhale long. 3 more. Extend. 2. Extend. Last one. Extend long. And this time as we bring the knee toward the nose, we'll plant the foot near the hands, low lunge. Maybe inching that right foot 1 inch to the right, giving you a stable foundation. That front foot is grounded, the back heel is lifted. Lightness through the fingertips. We'll bring the arms wide and high, extended mountain, high lunge, Pulling that right hip back in space. Leveling out the hips, pointing both hips toward the front of the room. Tucking the tailbone here. Let's bend that back knee, really tucking the tailbone, feeling that hip flexor stretch. Before re-straightening that back knee, possibly intensifying the stretch. And with this firm foundation, we'll move into a twist. The right hand dips low and back. Gaze is at the side wall. Returning both hands to the front of the room and then high. Hands come back down to the earth, stepping back to plank. Your choice, Chaturanga Vinyasa, kneeling Vinyasa, or down dog. Switching sides here. The right foot anchors down, the left heel lifts high, three-legged dog. Flexing that lifted foot, toes point straight down, keeping the hips neutral. On an exhale, the knee moves in toward the nose, hugging the thigh in close for that hip flexor work. And extend long. Exhaling in. Inhale, press back. 3 more. Extend. 2. Extend. extend. Last one. Extend long. And then bringing that knee forward, we'll plant the foot near the hands, low lunge. Again, you might wish to inch that left foot 1 inch to the left. Just ensuring you're not on a tightrope here. Front foot is grounded, back heel is lifted. Fingertips are light as we bring the arms wide and high, high lunge. Pulling that left hip back in space, leveling out the pelvis here. Both hips pointing toward the front of the room. And bend that back knee, tuck the tailbone, tighten the core here. Feel that stretch through the front of the right hip, that hip flexor. And option to re-straighten that back knee. We'll move into our twist. The left hand dips low and back, gazes at the sidewall. Strength and balance combine here. Returning both hands to the front of the room and then high. Hands come back down to the mat, stepping back to plank. Your choice, chaturanga vinyasa, kneeling vinyasa, or down dog. Shoulders lift. Our hips guide us back. Our gaze moves toward the top of the mat, bending the knees. Step or pop your feet up to meet your hands. Forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Reset. Forward fold. Reverse swan dive all the way up. Extended mountain pose. Feel free to bring the hands back down to the hips. Grab a sip of water if you'd like. We'll be repeating that sequence one more time with just a couple of tweaks. Meeting an extended mountain pose. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Forward fold. Reverse swan dive all the way up. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. This time our hips sink back and arms come high for chair pose. Weight is in the heels, slight tuck of the tailbone. Send those hips toward the back of the room, and then hands come to heart center. We'll twist to the left. Maybe that elbow touches down. Maybe you find a little more openness in your twist this time, now that we're warming up. Check in on those knees, pull that right hip back, leveling that right knee with the left. Any arm variation here. Returning through center and switching sides. Lengthening the spine. Reaching the crown of the head a little bit further. Level the knees out, pull that left hip back. Returning to center, hips press forward, arms come wide and high. Extended mountain pose. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Forward fold, bending the knees, planting the hands, stepping back to plank. Your choice, on your knees or on your toes, kneeling vinyasa, chaturanga vinyasa, or down dog. Shoulders lift, and our hips guide us back. That left foot anchors down, right heel lifts high, three-legged dog. Flexing that lifted foot, pointing the toes straight down, keeps the hips neutral here. This time we'll bend that lifted knee, opening up the hips, half scorpion tail. Re-leveling your weight between the two hands. Option to flip your dog here or take knee rotations. One direction, and then the other. Loosening up this hip joint. Last breath here. Returning to three-legged dog, extending that leg long. And we'll bring the knee in toward our nose, planting the foot near the hands, low lunge. The front foot is grounded, back heel is lifted. Lightness in the fingertips, arms come wide and high, high lunge. Pulling that right hip back in space. And tucking the tailbone here. The right hand dips low and back for our twist. Gazes at the side wall. Returning both hands to the front of the room and then high. Hands come back down to the mat, stepping back to plank. Your choice, kneeling vinyasa, chaturanga vinyasa, or down dog. Switching sides. The right foot anchors down, left heel lifts high. Three-legged dog. Flexing that lifted foot, toes point straight down to ensure hips are neutral. And then we'll bend that knee, open the hip, half scorpion tail. Your choice here, flip your dog or take rotations with that knee. Loosening up the hip joint one direction and then the other. Noticing the weight distribution between your two hands. And returning to center, three-legged dog, extend that leg long. Bringing the knee toward the nose, plant the foot near the hands, low lunge. Front foot grounded, back heel lifted. Light fingertips as the arms come wide and high, high lunge. Pull that left hip back in space, tuck the tailbone. And we'll take our twist. Left hand dips low and back. Gazes at the side wall. Returning both hands toward the front of the room and then high. Hands come back down to the mat, stepping back to plank. Last chaturanga opportunity or kneeling vinyasa or down dog. Shoulders lift. And our hips guide us back. Our gaze moves toward the top of the mat. We'll move straight into our stretching phase here. So maybe appreciating this downward dog. Maybe noticing if it feels a little more open than the beginning of class. Now that we're warmed up, limbered up. And that left foot anchors down, right heel lifts high again, three-legged dog. We'll bring that right knee forward, planting the foot near the hands, and then lower that back knee down. Crescent lunge, sending the hips forward and low, giving us that stretch through the front of the left hip, that hip flexor. We'll anchor the left hand down, reaching the right arm high for our twist. Reaching those fingertips up toward the sky, wringing out the internal organs. And lowering that right hand down. We'll walk both hands toward the back knee. Half splits or full splits if that's in your practice. Crown of the head reaching toward the front of the room. That front foot is flexed. Toes pulling back toward the forehead. Maybe pulling that right hip back in space. Feel that hamstring stretch. With each inhale, lengthen the spine. Each exhale, softening in. 2 more breaths like that, lengthening and softening. Walking the hands forward, framing that front foot. Tuck the back toes and lift that back knee. Low lunge. We'll press through that front foot, arms come wide and high, high lunge. And then bring the hands down to the hips, straighten the legs, and we'll pivot the feet so they're facing the side of our mat. Wide-legged forward fold, hinging at the hips with a long straight spine. Option to bring the hands down to the earth. And if you'd like to walk the hands over to one ankle or knee. And possibly adding a twist, reaching the arm high. Lowering that hand down and walking the hands over toward the opposite ankle or knee. Option again for that twist if you'd like to reach an arm high. All this twisting comes into play momentarily. Lowering that hand down, we'll return to center. And hands come to the hips with a long straight spine. It's our core that lifts us up to standing. Hips pressing forward as we come up. We'll pivot our feet toward the back of our mat this time. High lunge, arms come high. And then bring the hands down to the mat, lowering that back knee, crescent lunge, sending the hips forward and low, giving us that stretch through the front of the right hip this time. The right hand anchors down, left arm reaching high for that twist. Lowering the left hand down, we'll walk both hands toward the back knee, half splits, or full splits if you took that on the other side. Crown of the head reaching forward. That front foot is flexed, toes pulling back toward the forehead. Maybe pulling that left hip back in space. Feel that hamstring stretch. Each inhale lengthening the spine. Each exhale softening in. One more breath like that. Walking the hands forward, framing that front foot. Tuck the back toes and lift that back knee, low lunge. We'll lift up into our high lunge, arms come wide and high. And then hands come to the hips, straighten the legs, pivot the feet back toward the side of the mat. Feet are parallel with one another. We'll be taking alternating side lunges, bending one knee, sending the hips behind you. And then bending the opposite knee, continuing to send the hips back. Option to move into Skandasana or continue alternating this side lunge. One more each side. Last one. Returning to center. Letting the arms hang long before bringing them back to the hips. With a straight spine, the core lifts us up, hips pressing forward. And then we'll pivot our feet toward the front of our mat, high lunge. Bending that back knee, we'll step the left foot up to meet the right. Feel free to grab a sip of water. We'll be moving into our balance sequence next. For balancing, you're always welcome to be on your mat or on the hard floor. Some mats are just kind of wiggly. We'll be beginning with one-legged Tadasana. A lot of variations exist for this, so take whatever's your favorite. We'll begin from Tadasana, mountain pose. Toes are spread, knees are soft, pelvis tucks, chest is proud, crown of the head reaching high, palms shine toward the front of the room. Lifting one knee high, hands come to heart center. Focusing the gaze on a non-moving point, usually somewhere ahead of us on the floor works well. And maybe lowering that hip, aligning the pelvis. Focus the gaze. Option for variations here if you'd like to extend the leg, taking a toe hook. I'll float my knee out to the side, hips pressing forward, knee presses back. Tucking the tailbone here and returning that knee toward the front. We'll lengthen the leg, hold for a moment, hold, make that hip flexor work, and then lower down. Repeating that on the opposite side, one-legged Tadasana. The knee is at 90 degrees, hands are at heart center. Focus your gaze, maybe lower that hip. Palms pressing strongly into one another helps to stabilize the upper body. And we'll float that knee out to the side. Hips press forward, knee pressing back. Returning to center. Lengthen the leg, hold, 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 and float down. Nice work. Moving into a twist next. This is a standing, dancing Shiva variation. Your choice here, you can do this with a bent knee or straighten that leg. Beginning from Tadasana, one-legged Tadasana, bending that knee, hands to heart center. If you're taking the bent knee variation, bringing the hand to the outer edge of that bent knee, and then extending the opposite hand toward the back of the room. If you'd like to take a straight leg variation, sliding that hand down to the outer edge of the foot, and then extending that leg long. Crown of the head reaching high here. And returning to center, bending that knee and gently resting it down. We'll repeat that on the other side. I'll turn to the side this time so you can see. Bending that knee, one-legged Tadasana. Focus your gaze. If you're taking that bent knee variation, the opposite hand comes to the outer edge of that bent knee and the matching hand sends behind you. Coming into that twist. And if you're taking that straight leg variation, the hand grasps the outer edge of the foot. Continuing to send those opposite fingers behind you. Softness through the supporting leg can help with balance here. Continuing to work toward lengthening the spine. And returning to center, bending that knee. Gently rest the foot down. Meeting near the top of our mat, extended mountain pose. Swan dive down, forward fold. Halfway lift, flat back. Forward fold, bending the knees, planting the hands, stepping back to downward facing dog. We're preparing for half pigeon here, or you're welcome to take figure 4, seated or on your back. The left foot anchors down, right heel lifts high, three-legged dog. For pigeon, we'll bring that knee forward, resting it down behind the right wrist. Legs are in a number 7 shape here. And that front heel is as close or as far from your hips as you need it to be today. Crown of the head reaches high for proud pigeon. And we'll bring the gaze over the right shoulder, allowing the hips to slightly level out here. That left hip might ease forward allow it to do so. Returning the gaze toward the front of the room. Option for pigeon variations if you'd like here, mermaid, whatever you'd like. Or we'll humble our pigeon, leading with the chest. Option to stack the hands, making a pillow for your forehead, or extend the arms long, resting the forehead down on the earth. 5 breaths here. Let each exhale find somewhere we can soften. Maybe softening the forehead. Maybe the jaw. Maybe our belly. Maybe our hip. Last breath here. And we'll walk both hands back toward the hips, tucking the back toes and lifting the hips high, downward facing dog.